It's no secret that fans of PC games have been feeling more than a little frustrated about the many exclusives that have been hitting the Epic game stores lately. For space game fans, this will be particularly of interest due to the two hugely awaited titles, namely Rebel Galaxy Outlaws as well as the Outer Worlds, which are both now Epic Game Store timed exclusives. Bottom line, you won't be able to play these titles on Steam or any other store platform of your choice on the day of release. Well, okay, to be fair, the Outer Worlds would also be available on the Windows Store, but I think the point for many people is that it won't be available on Steam. Now, there's many thoughts that come to mind with this situation, not least that it kind of forces people to use the Epic Store if they want to play the game, in addition to the question of just how good the Epic Store is anyway. But before I get into all of that, let's take a look at why this is happening. What's the reasons that developers and publishers keep going timed exclusives with Epic? Well, as with many things, the main reason seems to come down to money. To be fair, Epic do offer developers a pretty good deal here. Whilst Steam take a 30% cut on all game sales, Epic take only a 12% cut. But there is a pretty big catch here. In order to get that hugely tempting 12% deal, developers need to agree to go with Epic Store for an exclusive 1-year timed period. From a business point of view, it does tend to make a lot of sense. Of course, as with any business deal, there's always going to be a ton of concerns, many of them being different from game to game and developer to developer. However, 3 common questions come to mind when dealing with selling your game on a game store. And keep in mind that this is from a developer or publisher point of view. This, of course, isn't from a player point of view. But anyway, these questions. Is the store trustworthy and reputable? Does the store have a wide reach? And what's the profit like? Well, the Epic Store ticks all the right boxes here. Whilst Epic is new to the store arena, they are well known. They are respected. They have achieved a lot of their own success with the Unreal 4 engine and Fortnite and many other things besides, and they are certainly well known in gaming circles, and they have a huge reach. And to top it all off, they let developers keep more of their profits than any other store out there. What's not to like? Well, aside from the fact that they have recently been accused of using the Epic Store as spy software or spyware, of course. But anyway, here's where the whole exclusivity deal gets a bit tricky. You see, it's the gamers who use the stores, they are the end user. So for the most part, they are not interested in the business side of the deal. Chris Avellone, who has worked for Obsidian, the company behind the Outer Worlds, and famed writer for hugely successful games such as Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic 2 and Fallout New Vegas, amongst many other titles, recently tweeted his concern for this situation of store-timed exclusives. And I've got to say, I feel he is on point. Here's what he had to say. I didn't realise the impact until I read the initial tweet and then scrolled down. It's how you killed the best hype you could have for a game, possibly best hype for any of the studio's game ever, and then undermine it for a cash grab. Looking at the various comments on Twitter over the past few days, it's very easy to see where he is coming from. There's a lot of frustrated people out there. It seems the biggest bone of contention though is not necessarily the exclusivity deal itself, although that is a major part, but rather the fact the game was listed on Steam, and a trailer showing the Steam logo, and only after all this was it announced to be an Epic timed exclusive. Not too unlike the situation that occurred with Metro Exodus, which Epic Games recently apologised for, stating that they would try to avoid doing this again in the future. Although, to be fair, there is a difference here of course, because Metro Exodus was actually available for pre-order on Steam right up until the month before release. People paid for it even, and then it was pulled. Now, the pre-orders were honoured of course, but even still, it's far from the same situation with the Outer Worlds and the other games, but nevertheless, it's still causing a lot of frustration here. Now, moving aside from all of that though, the bottom line for gamers is that there is now an exclusivity war going on the PC. It's something new for PC, or at least it's something that hasn't happened on PC for a very long time now. It's gone on of course with consoles for many years, but for PC users it seems to be something fresh, and it's opening a lot of wounds here. Now here's just a few of the games that this affects. Tom Clancy's The Division 2, Metro Exodus, Ashen, Satisfactory. Rebel Galaxy Outlaw, which I mentioned right at the start there, and coming up later there's a whole bunch of other games, including Detroit Become Human, Heavy Rain, Beyond Two Souls, all which have been PlayStation 4 exclusives, but are now going to be Epic Store exclusives. Also The Outer Worlds, which you mentioned earlier, and many other games besides, with new ones seemingly being added all the time. Now, is this a good thing or a bad thing? And I'm pretty sure that most people right now are jumping up and saying, of course it's a bad thing, it's obvious, but personally I think it's really interesting. Valve leveraged their position in PC gaming market way back in 2003 when they launched Steam alongside Half-Life 2. Half-Life 2 was a massively anticipated game, and if you wanted to play it, you needed to install Steam. There was no two ways about it. Many people, of course, were frustrated, and rightfully so. Just as with today's situation, they felt they were being forced into a decision that they didn't want to make. After all, there was no real advantage at that time of having Steam. In fact, right then, it felt like it was holding you back rather than helping you out. But the truth is, here we are a decade and a half later, and it turns out that Steam has been extremely good for the gaming industry. Before Steam, it was difficult to impossible for small developers to release games. It's fair to say that without Steam, many of the games that are now available today simply wouldn't exist, not to mention the massive sales and discounts that we now get that seem to have originated from the massive Steam sales. But regardless of how good Steam is, Valve take a huge 30% cut of all revenues of games that go up on that store, and this is huge. For me personally, I know exactly what this is like. I run a number of businesses that rely on digital distribution through Amazon and other channels, and I know what it feels like to have those massive cuts taken from your work. And I can appreciate what a huge temptation trading that 30% cut in for a 12% cut must actually be. And for that reason alone, my take would almost be to wait and see where this goes, because it does open up an entire new avenue for the gaming industry, especially small underfunded developers. But there of course are many other conditions and many other repercussions that are causing issues. And we'll get to some of those in just a moment. But right now, in regards to Steam, from a business point of view, it's on Valve to respond to the changing situation. Maybe they need to improve their offering or to provide other incentives. So yeah, I guess we could say there's a long-term view and a short-term view. Now here, I don't term short-term view in a negative light, it just means the more immediate repercussions, whereas the long-term repercussions are of course from the long-term view. So the short-term view here is that it's as annoying as hell to have to split my gaming library even further. It's frustrating to see how lacking and underdeveloped the Epic Store is at this particular time. It's also concerning to see that some of those accusations are out there making the rounds about alleged spyware nature of the Epic Store. I mean, let's just take a closer look at the Epic Store itself right here, both the pros and cons and weighing it up against Steam. Steam features cloud saving. I can move seamlessly between PC and laptop and resume my progress without issue. To be fair though, this is a feature apparently coming to the Epic Store in May, but I guess we'll have to see how it actually works there. Now Steam also has a great feature where it tracks the amount of time I've played on a game. Epic Store won't have this for up to 6 months from now. It's a minor thing, but it does make a huge difference. Now I also can't currently gift on the Epic Store, which, well, that doesn't really help when it comes to having family that like certain games. And talking of family, Steam also have family sharing, allowing me to share my games. This is a huge deal, and unless I'm missing something, this isn't a feature Epic plan on offering anytime soon. Oh, and Steam Link is also pretty great as well. So these are some pretty big features, and that's without getting into the entire aspect of community interaction, Steam Workshop, games news tracking, and many other features Steam provides as well. In short, buying a game on a platform other than Steam most often feels like getting a bum deal. It feels that I'm losing out because, well, because I actually am losing out without access to all of those great features. Yet even still, I'd argue that most, and I emphasize most, but certainly not all, of these features will probably arrive on the Epic Store at one point or another in the future. Epic then is playing a massive game of catch-up, but we can't deny that they do have the resources to enter this annoying race. It can also be reasonably argued though that Epic aren't exactly playing fair here, and this is certainly hitting gamers where it hurts. Yet whether people want to hear it or not, there is another question to be asked. Even if you feel Epic's approach isn't the right approach, it cannot be denied that Epic have the potential to change the PC gaming industry. Whether it will be changed for the good or changed for the bad, only time will tell. For one thing, offering more money to developers is a huge benefit, but only if that money goes into the game's development and in turn brings us better games and a wider range of games. Right now, I think it's more than fair to be cynical about the situation. After all, I personally was very cynical about Steam in 2003 and for many years afterwards. The real question then is whether Epic can prove their worth if given time. It might not feel like we should be giving them that chance or that opportunity right now, but aside from shouting about it, it seems we don't really have much choice. Although I'm sure people are going to hate hearing this, and I actually hate hearing it myself, it's possible that maybe, just maybe, Epic could ultimately do as much good for the gaming industry as Valve did with Steam. Meanwhile though, it feels as though we are all stuck with what seems like a bunch of very bad deals. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys and girls next time.